Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at whoknewpodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is an adventure in space and time. In honor of the 50th anniversary, this is a dramatization of the creation and early years of Doctor Who. It's written by Mark Gatiss, directed by Terry McDonough. It originally aired on the 21st of November 2013 and was watched by 2.71 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hello, it's Kelsey.
Hi, this is Brian.
Hello, this is Frank.
The BBC needs to fill a half-hour hole in their programming. Sidney Newman and Verity Lambert are tasked with creating the story of a doctor and his companions flying through time and space. But troubles soon emerge as the doctor's actor, William Hartnell, has increasing health issues. So, where do we want to start?
Oh, that's the summary?
That's it, yeah.
Put the 15-minute counter up.
Oh yeah, the counter.
I thought it was interesting that the whole idea is told from William Hartnell's perspective. At the very beginning, he drives up to what was at the time a police box, bringing back his memory of being just let go from being the doctor. You know, you don't quite get that, but then right afterwards, you see the time going backwards to show us how it all began. And it's his point of view, and then at the end, it comes back to that same moment in time. So I liked that idea, so that anything that they get historically incorrect could be saying this is what they believe his point of view is going to be, who he liked, who he really involved himself with. So it's mostly a story between him and Verity. That seems to be the main focus of this, not just the show's creation, but between those two people.
Yeah, because there are historical inaccuracies, but that's not the point of this.
Right.
You mean like Sidney Newman's accent?
Well, Sidney Newman is Canadian.
Yeah, so he wouldn't have that accent.
Yeah, so he has like a New Yorker accent.
Yeah, he's got that typical New York as viewed through a British lens accent, American accent.
Is ITV in Toronto? Where's ITV?
That's in
London.
The UK.
Oh, it's in London. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So ITV is like BBC's competitor.
Oh, okay.
ABC versus NBC.
But BBC is state-run and ITV, or are they both owned by the state?
No, just BBC.
Okay.
As a TV movie, I thought this was very well done. The production values are awesome on this.
Yes.
And the music, the score, I don't know, I really liked it, and I didn't notice it the first time I watched it, but it's like a companion. I don't know what it is. It's not of the time, but it's modern enough and whimsical enough that I liked it.
I felt like I would get whiffs, like just the scent of like themes from the modern show, like
yeah,
but not quite, just kind of almost there. Maybe that's just the British composers are all like kind of sound, in that vein, but yeah, I agree. Like I almost heard Clara's theme, or I almost heard other themes, but yeah. That
opening shot with the TARDIS and Hartnell in the car, definitely evocative of Clara's theme. Edmund Butte, he's the composer.
In the story, they said it was a gap between sports and kids, and they wanted to get both the adult men and the kids involved in something, and came up with science fiction is a thing to try and get both and bridge that gap that they had. I thought that was interesting, and that he wanted, he, meaning Sidney Newman, wanted it also to have historical aspect to it.
Mm-hmm. And then he didn't want the bug-eyed monsters.
Right. And
I did love the reaction, though, about how you want a science fiction show? That's the kiss of death.
Right. But it was big then, and he knew it. And he is the idea man, and he is on the trends and what's going to happen. So that was an interesting take on him, because he wasn't the most personable person, Sidney Newman, or as involved in this as I had thought he was, according to this show. I mean, he had the idea of sketching it out. This is what's going to happen. Giving it over to the first film first female producer, which they touched on the sexism and racism slightly, I guess to just remind us it was there, but they didn't really focus on it, which I'm a little surprised at. It didn't go a little bit deeper into that.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't really like this very much. And that's one of the reasons why. I kind of feel this is like, you get this when they're trying to tell a true story or adapting a book where it's, well, there's certain things we have to cover. So it's almost like instead of covering the story, they cover the chapter titles. So it's like, this is the scene where Verity experienced sexism. This is the scene where we find out who the doctor is going to be. This is the scene where filming is a nightmare. To me, it doesn't have any depth. You're just like, they've slotted in all the necessary scenes, but there's no depth. So yeah, Verity got, there was like that moment when Verity had the sexism and the guy quit because of her.
Oh, is that what happened? I didn't.
And it's not like I wanted it to be a show about breaking the glass ceiling in the BBC, but I wanted something, and for me, it just doesn't do it.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting because like we're watching the BBC make a made-for-TV movie about themselves, right? The BBC produced this, right? Like this is
right.
Yeah. So, like right away, conflict of interest for sure. Like, how honest are they going to be? One of the things, just to add to your list of things that they like hinted at but didn't delve deeper into. We see Wallace exchange a
Wallace.
look, or a man look at Wallace in a way that we're like that gives us a hint of like, look, Wallace is gay, and then
is that his name?
Wallace.
Oh, but see, the doctor called him Wallace at one point.
Yes.
Okay, so we see in the scene at the bar, someone gives Wallace a look to fill the viewer in that Wallace is gay, but then that was it, and it just leaves the viewer either feeling like I don't know if empty's the word, but dissatisfied. Like even in that when he makes his exit, Verity gives him a look that to me was like she's attracted to him, and then I expected her to follow him into the elevator and like try to like make a move, and then him be like, no, that's not,
to wrap up his story.
Yeah, to give a moment for them to like, learn something about each other, or for Verity to learn something personal about Wallace.
But she knew at the bar. I mean, she was watching that, and she even mentioned about, Wallace having a cute butt, and entering that, watching the guy watch him. So she knew at the bar. And I think how I took that scene is that's her companion. That's her one person that they bonded over being the only people in their field at this time in the BBC, being the outsiders.
And I kind of took it in the same way, except, okay, you're leaving, but you're leaving me with all these crazy people.
Right.
So that's how I took that scene.
Well, going back to what Frank said, this is about William Hartnell and Verity Lambert. So this is where William Hartnell, his memory stops. He doesn't know what happened to Wallace afterwards.
But also, this is the part of the show, this episode, the show we're watching, the movie, where it's a cascade of everybody leaving. He was the first one, and then they're changing companions, and then Verity finds a new job. And it could be her looking at it, also, you're leaving. Have I made my mark enough to move on to something else? Just because even at the very beginning, the way they were treating it was a show. It's not something that's going to last and have a 50th anniversary or have a 60th anniversary or anything. It was a show to fill a time slot for a few years. And it just took on its own life and kept going because it had great ratings compared to Leave at the time. It was good. I mean, there's so much you can bring into that look and that scene because he's gone, so it's a hit. Things are going well. But it's just right then they cut quickly to other companions coming on and other things happening.
And if I have this right, doesn't he have to go off and be the master? He's kind of busy.
I know.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was
Are we going to
cool.
talk about the casting now?
Oh, you wanted? I usually say that to the end. Do you want to
Also,
talk about
Verity
that?
came back in
Oh.
Doctor Who.
Yeah, is it Emma
Should we do it
Grayling?
now, since Brian brought up the some of
Sure.
the cast?
Yeah, she's
Go for it.
She's Emma Grayling in the episode Hyde. That is Jessica Raine playing Verity Lambert, and then she was in The Last Post called The Midwife. We mentioned this before. David Bradley, he's playing William Hartnell, and he played Solomon in
Mhm.
Dinosaurs on a Spaceship,
Uh-huh.
and he's from Game of Thrones and Harry Potter.
He also
Marvel.
played Doctor Who, the first Doctor, again.
He will, yes,
Oh, that is true.
he will.
Timey-wimey.
Yeah.
Brian Cox plays Sidney Newman. He's William Stryker in X2. He played Robert McKee in Adaptation with Nick Cage. He was Logan Roy in Succession, or he is Logan Roy in Succession for those of you who are watching the show now. And he was previously in Doctor Who as the Elder Ood's voice in The End of Time Part 1.
Oh, okay.
Sasha
End of
Dow.
Time, Part 1.
Yeah, where
that-
Beginning
David
of
that
Tennant,
Tennant's
when Tennant leaves.
Oh, okay.
The end of time itself.
Sasha Darwin plays Waris Hussein. He was in 24 Live Another Day. And I remember him, he's done a lot of stuff since then and a lot of things from overseas or, like the UK. But I remember him from a sitcom on NBC called Outsourced. He played Man Meat. It's where they take a bunch of IT folks and they're mostly Indian. And it was based off of, I think, a movie. And then they made it into a sitcom, which it had some good episodes, but mostly not so good episodes. I'm going to go through these real quick because I didn't see anything else that these folks had done that's like worth noting. Claudia Grant plays Carol Ann Ford. Gemma Powell plays Jacqueline Hill. Leslie Manville plays Heather Hartnell. That's William Hartnell's wife. Jamie Glover plays William Russell. That's Ian Chesterton, the actor playing Ian Chesterton. And then Ross Gurney Randall plays Reg. Roger May plays Len. Sam Howar plays Douglas Camfield. Charlie Kemp plays Arthur. Reese Shearsmith plays Patrick Troughton, the actor that replaces William Hartnell in this movie. And then Jeff Raleigh plays Mervyn Pinfield. That becomes the associate producer to Verity. He's the older gentleman with the glasses and always wearing the waistcoat.
Hmm.
He was previously in Doctor Who-ish with the Sarah Jane Adventures. He played Mr. Harding in the story Mona Lisa's Revenge. And he was Amos Diggory in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was in Classic Who. He was the Plantagenet in Frontios with the Fifth Doctor.
I saw a cameo
do
hidden in
you,
this.
Do you want me to do that now too?
Oh, I don't know. I thought since we're talking about it, we can.
Are you doing like Doctor Who Easter egg cameos?
Yeah, I was going to save that for the end.
Okay, we're talking about the same one, I think, near at the going away party.
Yes, there's two. There's two.
Oh, then I only caught that one. Okay, good.
Yeah. Well,
okay, yeah, totally geeking out at this moment, aren't we?
Yeah.
Good for us.
Well, I like this. I don't know why. I just have a warm feeling about it, and I noted things or scenes that I enjoyed, and I think it's because we've sort of gotten pieces of the story through like behind the scenes, reading, research, and when I see it all strung together in a narrative, I'm more invested, even though I know what's going to happen. I know that William Hartnell is going to be replaced. I know that the show is going to have a rough start because of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, but it's going to find its place in pop culture and it's going to continue. So I don't know. I think just me being a fan, I'm primed to like this already. Something that reminded me of what we've been doing is when Hartnell gets this, I think it's the first script or one of the second episodes or something, because I don't think it's An Unearthly Child, but he's reading it and he's going over his lines. His granddaughter comes to him and starts asking him questions about what he's saying. And then he goes, "I'm the doctor." He's like, "The doctor? A doctor, does he make people better?" And that reminded me of Christopher Eccleston at Rose City Comic Con when he mentioned that his kid did the same thing to him. He's like, Dad, people say that you are the best doctor. Does that mean you make people better? I was like, this is so weird that totally unrelated things, but essentially the same message, the same theme of who the doctor is.
Yeah, well, what about when Hartnell, when he finds out he's gonna be replaced, saying to his wife, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to go. And I was like, that's Tennant's line.
And it's so sad that this made it work better, because that line when Tennant says it still doesn't land for me. But this one, it's like you made it work where he doesn't want to go, like literally, because he got revitalized in his acting career, but his health is keeping him from proceeding.
But whoever put that in was perfect. I mean, yes, it kind of brought us all out, but it's the same thing of the doctor transitioning to another doctor in the show, but this bringing it to, you really are going, and it's not your main choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it took me out of it. It made it better. Like, I think all the moments of this movie that I liked were because, like, I knew about things going in. So, like, I love seeing the Daleks on the London Bridge.
Yeah.
Is that the bridge they were on?
Westminster Bridge?
Well, okay. Yes. So
on the famous bridge?
Yeah, on the famous bridge. I love seeing the Daleks on the Westminster Bridge, but I don't think I would have enjoyed that scene if I hadn't watched, like, classic Who episode that scene is from. So my enjoyment increased.
Yes.
Yeah, and so now you see why we did those episodes, the Dalek invasion of Earth, because they do that in this episode, and then the unearthly child, because of this is the pilot that they're creating.
It's the iconic stuff.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see this until, I watched it for this podcast, although it's one I've always wanted to see when people talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it added a lot to it for me as well.
Well, even what you're talking about with the Dalek, where this is their second episode, because the caveman episodes didn't do so well, and then so they're like, we got this new writer, he's and then it's a mentioning Terry Nation, who came up with the Daleks. And we as fans know what the Daleks are, but the way they cover the reveal, it's as if they're showing it to somebody who's never seen Doctor Who. And I appreciated that, because it starts off with a low angle. You're basically seeing up the guy's nose as he's encased in the practical Dalek, and he's being locked in so that he can run around. And then and then you see his POV through the mesh, and it reminded me a lot of RoboCop. When RoboCop is first revealed, it's never shown, and when he's walking through the precinct, it's through this frost-covered glass, so you still don't get a good view of who he is. And the POV shot of that, like, MS-DOS green writing from RoboCop's point of view, and I was like, this is really well done for something that I already know.
Right.
What it's going to look like, what it's going to do, and they're making it as the POV is going, they're even making fun of it. It's like, what is he going to do? Whisk eggs? He's going to plunger us to death? And then the reveal with the cast, when it's like lower and seeing the Dalekanium, like the balls, and then going up. I don't know. It was just, you didn't need to do that, but I'm glad they did.
I thought when they had the point of view shot, to me it seemed like, okay, it's reminiscent of, we always see through the Daleks' eye stalk on the show. Now we're seeing what they see in reality.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a clever little juxtaposition, I guess. It's crazy that it worked. It's just because you look at it and go, it's the dumbest looking thing I've ever seen. But they're so cool.
I think when I watched this at first, I was like, oh, this is BBC like propaganda, like kind of whitewashing their history a little bit. But I think it's actually more just Mark Gaddis's like kind of blind love for Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And so like that stuff that like I think I'm interested in from a historical perspective, like Mark isn't. at all.
Mhm.
Like it's all about like the wonder of that start to Doctor Who. And
Yeah.
so like kind of, but you guys are saying something similar, like putting it through William Hartnell's memory, I think is doing the same thing. It's allowing those lovely things to come to the top and kind of whitewashing those other things. But I think that's why, Eugene, you like it. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's why those parts where he is calling back to modern and classic Who, like with the line I don't want to go, and with everything else, like there's so many of those things throughout that are fun, because you're
Yeah.
like, I kind of get that, like, but that's
Mhm.
it's also kind of not deep, because that's what it is. It's like all at that kind of level of sugary sweet, like, remember this sort of.
Yeah.
Well, it's written for fan service, and
Yeah.
Of course.
they know that.
Well, it's for the 50th, so that's why they did this, and they did an extra special with the Day of the Doctor, as opposed to how it usually goes with the Christmas special, which is Time of the Doctor.
Mm.
So it's like they added extra things because it's the 50th, and I remember us saying that the 50th is, or the Day of the Doctor is fan service, but that's what it's supposed to be, and I think this is just an extension of it, so that's why I like it. And Gaddis, being a fan, he tried to make this for the 40th, and it didn't get greenlit. And so I think him being a writer on the show and him cozying up and knowing Stephen Moffat, he finally got his chance to do it. And I think it's a pretty good job. And like you said, like kind of a love letter to the fans.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the 40th version had more attention to the sexism and racism, and it was going to be too heavy. And so this, they wanted to go a different direction. I'm not negating anything you guys said, because I agree with it, but I'm also thinking this was about the first Doctor. It was about William Hartnell and Verity. So having that other thing, even the assassination of the president, wasn't really put into the show. It was referenced. Oh, it's Kennedy's fault, and Verity fighting for redo episode 1 right before episode 2. We didn't have a fair shot because of it. Not that it wasn't important, not that it didn't play a part, but I think like the other ones, that's not the story that they ended up wanting to tell. It was more of the interplay between people, as the relationships and the what's the word I'm looking for, Brian? The it's more character driven rather than exterior. And I liked having Verity fight for the Daleks, and Sidney Newman going, no, we got to sell this, and this is gone, and so we're only going to do those first 4 episodes, and her fighting for it and believing in it, and him, according to this, believing in her enough, to go, you're going to hang yourself if you don't do it, but I'll give you the shot.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Do you guys know the movie Chaplin with Robert Downey Jr.?
Robert Downey, yeah.
The scene that plays in my mind when I'm thinking about this movie is when in Chaplin, he like has this like fully realized, like the tramp just came together, like it was there, like it just magically appeared to me. And then he's like, well, actually I had to like go through all the hats and the canes, and like it wasn't just magic. Where this movie is like all magic, like the Daleks just appear, and like everything is just fully formed, like almost too perfectly. I know you have to, because we have to get through like the movie and the story, and that's not what it's about, but I think that's also kind of what's like holding back on like feeling like we're really seeing into the inner workings, because it's that quick like surface.
Yeah, we have to hit the major beats and then move on.
Yeah,
we needed an 80s montage.
Yeah. Yes.
I did like how it was Verity described him as Frank Morgan from Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
I thought that was a good visual reference you got right away. Most everybody has seen it, so they get the idea of the wizard. But because Hartnell was being typecast a lot, he's, I read up a little bit on him. He did some petty crime when he was younger. He was hard growing up, and then he was in a lot of comedies, and he was a character actor in comedies, and then he did some roles that were more strict military type of things, and then he just got typecast into that, and that's all he was doing. So bringing that edge to it, I think, was a good idea. But again, like we've all said when we've watched the first couple ones, it was too much. And then they did lighten him up as it went by. And that's how they talked about it, giving him that twinkle in his eye, being a little bit more like the Wizard of Oz type, which I think played off well.
Oh, go away.
Okay.
You don't remember that was the doctor saying that to Ian?
Oh, I know.
Making sure everybody knew I wasn't telling you to go.
Oh.
I don't want to go.
Frank, you saying that reminded me of another thing I wrote down or remembered is when they have to reshoot everything because Sydney wants it. And Verity is just talking with him, William Hartnell backstage. I don't know. I didn't expect that type of like motivation type of character thing between two actors, as opposed to like she just comes in and says we got to reshoot and then they just reshoot. I thought that was nice that they did that, and I really like the acting between the two of them.
Where she's saying that she messed up because of that, being him too harsh and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, was he? Well, we have a lot of private scenes with him in his house, with his wife, with his granddaughter. Like, do you think he was portrayed accurately, or like what are they basing their character William Hartnell on?
Well, I have the Blu-ray, the DVD. So there's a featurette that has his granddaughter reminiscing about this time, and she goes, "What I saw on TV was grandfather." So I think that that's accurate. Like he wasn't really acting; he was just playing himself as this cantankerous, grumpy alien from another planet.
But
yeah, go ahead.
But they also showed that he loved the kids' reaction. He loved that to little kids. He was the doctor, and he would play that up. So he wasn't like he was cantankerous in general, but he did have those softer moments when it was important.
Yeah, the other one that comes to mind that they mentioned in that featurette was when he kind of scolds Carol Ann Ford for buying a dress on her paycheck. It's like nothing lasts, and he kind of upset the crew. So he got flowers for all the women, and I think they said he brought biscuits, which are cookies, for all the men. And they all liked that because they said he couldn't really. He was of a generation where he couldn't say sorry.
No.
So this was his way of doing it, and they appreciated that he actually did something instead of just like swallowing it and moving along. So those moments were true, and I think that that's cool that they kept them in there.
And I think kids' places were different back in the 60s, 70s. Before even the 80s, and they became the latchkey kids, and it changed a lot, and they grew up a lot. But I remember people not taking young kids to amusement parks, Disneyland, because that's for the older kids. The younger kids stayed home with someone else, with relatives, babysitters, whatever, because they knew they wouldn't get the fulfillment out of it. Really young kids will like opening a box, playing with something else. They're still enjoying themselves. So I think at the time, you go out to dinner, it was the adults, and the kids would stay home with the babysitter, not just bringing them to fancy dinners or anything.
Or you got relegated to the back corner of the table and you had to sit there and not talk while they chatted on and on and on. I don't have issues, I swear, I don't.
No, but it
true.
was a different time.
It was
trying
true.
to look at it just from that. He was already not all healthy, so he was getting weaker and tired more quickly, because of his condition. The blood wasn't flowing as well, and he's been out of work, so he was already irritated. And he took it out of his granddaughter, but that is what, until when the 70s and 80s came along, a lot of that would happen.
But the granddaughter
didn't hold it against him forever.
No. 5 minutes later, Grandpa's the greatest person on the planet. That's kind of how I was seeing it. But back to the way he was portrayed.
But it was hard to see because it is different than what we live with today.
Yeah.
Our attitude and perception of it is so different. But trying to put it back then, because even his relationship with his wife, they were married their the entire time. They didn't divorce, they didn't remarry to anyone else. This was their life and this was their family. And they did love each other. And when he was happy and she was happy, it worked so well. But they didn't have that communication that we all now have grown up with, of trying to communicate and trying therapy or trying something different. It was like, then they didn't have that opportunity or way to deal with it. So I thought it was done well, but it was hard to watch because it's almost, you want to look at it now going, well, just talk to each other, open up about this, do something, that we would try and do now to work through problems. Sorry, I'm lecturing now, I didn't realize. And the scene of him with the kids in the park
is great.
Was great. And it was, showing the other side of him, and that how Doctor Who revitalized something in him. So he was having fun. He did like the play. It wasn't the same role he's been playing forever. He did get to do something different that was positive and affecting kids. And it was good. And so that was really nice to see.
And I like how the show had him like not only appreciate how good it was, but also get into it, like with the console things and making sure that he had the right button. This is going to be the open door button from now on, and like also however real or whatever, it was a nice metaphor to have him be the one that had to turn on the TARDIS console to make it work.
Yes.
And then turning it off when he left. That was good.
Where the technician didn't know what to do.
Yeah. That made it his TARDIS.
Yeah. Some behind the scenes on that, the console has that light green to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because, normally we see it's all white and sterile. But it's because of black and white TVs, just like Star Trek. They had the gold, red, and blue, so that you could tell that they were different on a black and white TV. So that's why they did that. Otherwise, the video cameras would have seen like a blown out console as far as like a blown out image because of the white reflectiveness. So that's why it's green.
It even goes back to like I Love Lucy. When they put makeup on I Love Lucy, it had a green tinge to it so that it would show up properly in a gray tone on a black and white TV.
And that's why when Superman showed up, the George Reeves, his costume was like brown and gray and not red and blue.
So that you could see it.
Yeah.
Well, I also, the Daleks also, like the spheres were like greenish in this show.
They look like turquoise to me.
Yeah. Was that probably, I'm sure it was accurate to the Daleks at the time, but probably also another like filming, like just to get things to show up different contrasts.
Probably, but what's funny is that the toys that come out for that era of Daleks, they have that turquoise Dalekanian balls as well. So I don't know if that's really what, maybe somebody had a color camera and took production stills.
Well, that could have been.
I wish they would have gone into that in the actual movie of why they would do things in color, colorizing them in certain ways. I wish they would, this is not working, and then having them blown out on their screen and go, well, that's not going to be good. Let's tone it down and find the right color.
Yeah, show us Dalek 1.0 and then like figuring out this was the thing that was missing that made it a Dalek. Here it is. Like, yeah.
That would have been fun.
Or like more innovative things that they had to do because they were on this strict budget. I think we get a hint of that. Like we get a hint of them having to like struggle at the beginning with like the sound stage that they're given, and we get a little bit of that, but yeah, it would have been nice to see more missteps, and then what came out of that is like so iconic. It's like this, but then like seeing that it's like this because it was like invention. It was like a necessity, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. And I did think it was really neat to see how they had to live edit the show. I thought that was a really cool educational bit of knowledge that they threw in there, and I was so fascinated by that.
Didn't they say they could only cut 4 times?
Yeah, that was Mervyn Pinfield, the associate producer, telling that to Warris in the control booth. And they also, what I like about that part that we're talking about now is that they showed how the bulky cameras and the cables. That's why Warris is telling them, move the camera, and then they're like bumping into furniture or set props. And then they make a racist comment about Warris, where because the lights make the studio hot, and they're like, shouldn't he be used to that because he's Indian from India, not Native American Indian. Um, and then you see that the sprinklers go off because it's way too hot, and I'm like, wow, that's cool that they did that.
I like the little moment where, hold on, I lost it. Oh, I like it. Okay, so there's that moment where William Hartnell says the wrong word, and behind the camera, one guy's like, he said the wrong word, and the other guy just like shrugs. Okay, this is what we got to work with. So I thought that was a good little reference to, yes, we know, unfortunately, what's happening with William Hartnell.
But then off of that, you see his granddaughter, like one watching the show, call out a flub that he made, but then she reasoned it. Oh, well, you're the doctor, so you know something that the rest of the people don't know. And that's why you said gloves or whatever.
Yeah, the granddaughter was saying, you need gloves to touch the Daleks because they're so dangerous. I think he was supposed to say drugs.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of like sad to see these things sprinkle. They definitely sprinkled things about William Hartnell's health, like when Warris had left and the director's directing him. He's like, Warris, I can do this. It's like, oh, Warris hasn't been here for a while. And then I think we caught or catch it where he flubs the line and he can't say Chesterton. He says like Charto.
Yeah.
And they even do something like that in this one. And then the one where they kind of laugh at it is when he says, he's supposed to say the fault locator, but he says fornicator. So we've covered that episode. I think that was The Edge of Destruction. So I like seeing the stuff that we've done hinted at in this movie.
Yeah. And that it all played off on that one. That was funny. Everybody was like, just go with it. Just go with it.
And then the doors constantly kept opening. I'm like, what is going on here, guys?
When they picked Patrick Troughton to replace him, I was trying to do research on that. And some are saying that it was Hartnell who suggested Troughton to replace him. That it was his idea.
Well, that's what Hartnell was claiming by the end of the movie.
Okay, that's where I'm getting that from, because I was wanting to find out, because I'd heard about that. So I like that they put this in there just because of that, going, what we've all had is that he named his successor. And it's like, no, but he knew of him. It looked like, no, I know of him. He's good. And he did say the line in that meeting, he's the one who can do this.
Yeah. I like that moment where the next actor who was going to play him was like super nervous. Like he even said that, like, what does he say? I've only seen it the once, so I don't remember, but he's like, it's like, it's Hartnell's last day and the new doctor's there. And he's like, I hope I do a good job, or I hope I don't mess it up.
And Hartnell was saying, I told him there was only one person who could fill this role. And Troughton, so he couldn't answer? He could come?
Where is he? Yeah.
And speaking of Patrick Troughton, we mentioned in another episode, the Three Doctors special. I think that was the 10th anniversary of the show, or they mentioned something in the special features, but William Hartnell was probably retired by this time, and they called, and it was John Pertwee, the third doctor, was the current doctor, and they called up Patrick Troughton, the second doctor, and he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then they called William Hartnell, or I think they called the wife first, and they said, we'd love for him to come back. And she goes, he'd love to, but his health, he can't memorize anything. And so I know we haven't watched it, but that's why the first doctor is isolated from the other two doctors, because he's in his own kind of like studio set. It's very dark, and they are throwing up cue cards for him to read his lines. So even though he couldn't act with anybody, I'm so glad that they found a way, and they wrote a way to have him into that special. And he said he's like, yeah, I'll do it. So I like that he's willing, and they found a way to work with his limitations.
Also, his wife, from what I understand, said that he needs to sit during it. He couldn't stand and do a lot of the things that way. He couldn't walk a lot and stand a lot, so he had to sit down during if he's going to do the show.
Yeah.
Wasn't he sitting in a little pyramid-y thing?
Yeah, it's like a weird glass pyramid that was supposed to be like a crystal, I think. I don't remember.
Something like that, floating through the void.
So should we all talk about the doctor in the room? The ending
Yeah.
little scene? Well, William Hartnell as the doctor, his last day, reminiscing about his time and being there, he looks over and sees Matt Smith being the last doctor of this regeneration cycle, at least at the time. Because we all thought at the time, what are they going to do? How are they going to continue the show? Because Matt Smith's doctor was the last regeneration. So we didn't know what was going to happen. So it was, at the time, the current doctor, but this was supposed to be his span. So that was kind of, at the time, it was like, oh, this is a new one. And then looking back on it now, it's still encapsulated in that, being the first, and at least for me, being the first and then the last of that grouping, that reincarnation lineage.
And that scene is from the 10th planet. That is the last story that William Hartnell does before he regenerates into the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. That's one of those episodes that's like lost, so they animated it. That scene that they took where he's on the TARDIS console and he glances over at Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor. Matt Smith then starts to flip some switches on the console. Mm-hmm. So in William Hartnell's regeneration, as it is televised and animated, the TARDIS console starts to flip its own switches. So I think that's cool that they wrote that there's a reason why that happens. And I don't know. It's like, that's for diehards right there.
Crazy.
Okay, you just made me like that cameo.
Yeah, well, what I said this to Albert, and I'll share it with all of you. Like, I can't trust anything in this movie because there's a scene where they have the TARDIS disappear in real life on the monitor while they're filming live to tape, and it's like, no, how did they do that? No,
it's magic.
Well, they would have to have had two different cameras filming.
I see what you're saying. Okay. That's taken from the Dalek invasion of Earth, where Carol Ann Ford as Susan leaves. I never took it that the TARDIS actually dissolves. It's funny because I took that as we don't have time, so we're just going to show you how it aired, and that's how it aired.
Yeah. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. It's a better story to have the TARDIS disappear on the video console than it was to show them going to location, filming on location, trucking the TARDIS off, filming some more. Yeah.
I mean, what isn't a good story without a little embellishment, right?
Yeah.
Verity Lambert leaves the show, and they throw her a farewell party, a going away party. And William Hartnell says, "Until we meet again." This is the same thing that the fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, said to Sarah Jane Smith, Elizabeth Sladen, when she left the TARDIS in The Hand of Fear. And then the security guard at the BBC that tells Sidney Newman, identification, that's William Russell, the guy that plays Ian Chesterton, the first companion.
Oh, cool.
I was wondering who he was. I didn't recognize him at all, but I figured the way that they presented it,
yeah,
like, who is this? And I just did not get that.
They gave him so many lines. And then Carol Ann Ford, who played Susan, is the mom. I'm gonna say she's the mom in the street. It's like sunset, and she's calling, Michael, Dennis, your tea's getting cold, as they pan across, and then they see people watching Doctor Who in the house.
Oh, okay.
Oh, shoot, I didn't pay that attention. Oh.
Now we have to watch it again.
Definitely.
So, Frank, you picked up, I'm going to say, Jean Marsh?
Yes. Yeah, Jean Marsh was next to Verity Lambert and William Hartnell in that goodbye scene for Verity's goodbye party. She's standing right next to her, and she was Morgaine in Battlefield, which was the 7th Doctor and Ace.
The one we did.
With the whole King Arthur, Sword in the Stone storyline.
And she was also in Crusade with the First Doctor, but as a different character.
Oh, okay.
And then next to Jean Marsh is Ankie Willis, who played Polly. She was a companion to the First Doctor, and then transitioned to the Second Doctor.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was someone, but I couldn't figure out who it was. But Jean Marsh caught my eye right away in the background.
Oh, for sure.
I was like, whoa, look, Mulby. From Escape from Oz. That's where I first knew her from. So just
Return to Oz.
Return to Oz. Sorry.
It's okay.
I know that. I'm getting old. I'm Hartnell. That was great to see her. But okay, Polly, that makes sense. The haircut and everything. Okay.
There's a guy called, there's an actor, Mark Eden. He plays Donald Braverstock, and he was the original Marco Polo. That's the scene that they are filming where Susan buys that dress.
Yeah, the Asian cut dress that William Hartnell says she shouldn't have bought.
Mm-hmm.
And Marco Polo is one of those completely gone.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
No, but I don't think it exists at all. I think it's one of the ones that's completely missing, which is probably a good thing.
There was that one scene on the bus where Verity sees the kids playing Dalek, and that was great. And her going, can't wait to see it. This is what happened on the bus. Uh-oh, I'm going to be fired. It just was a good scene of, it made the impact that she wanted to. It was, having them on the bus was great.
So An Adventure in Space and Time was nominated for Best Single Drama and the Hugo Award, I think. No, that was the BAFTA. And then for the Hugo Award, it was nominated for Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form.
It was up against like every other Doctor Who thing.
Yeah.
In the
50th?
The short form one, it was up against Day of the Doctor, Time of the Doctor. I want to say the Five-ish Doctors, but I could be wrong on that. And then like an episode of Game of Thrones and something.
Yeah, I think that year it went to Game of Thrones, the episode The Reigns of Castamere.
I liked this movie. I watched it when it first came out for the 50th, and I haven't seen it since until for this. And I've forgotten a lot about it and how it was done. But there's still such a sadness about it. It kind of reminds me of Blink, how, sad is, happy for deep people. And it just has this air of some happiness with it. But overall, that bittersweet melancholy flavor that the British do so well. America doesn't do it as well. And I'd recommend seeing it. I liked it.
Like I said before, I don't really like it. I don't dislike it. I'm very neutral towards it. Watching it, I think my problem is I really wish we had the actual documentation of how it happened. I mean, we don't, because they're not going to let's have a documentary of a cheap kids show. But I really wish we could see the actual behind the scenes, real people really coming around to designing and writing this stuff. And I think of that a lot when I'm watching this. So I'm neutral.
Yeah, it was an interesting education into Doctor Who, the beginning of how it started. I feel like I learned stuff, but you watch it because you love the show and you're like, you need something to tie you over to the next season. You're like, oh, I'll watch that, that made-for-TV movie that the BBC did about themselves, and and the movie that they did about the making of Doctor Who. It was a cool little flick.
And Kelsey, I want to reiterate what you said earlier, in that the more you know or have seen some of the classic episodes and know about it, really helps bring it all in. It makes it a better show when you had seen the original episodes, when you know that Jessica Raine was in Hyde, and she's also doing Verity Lambert, and that all the other cameos are in it. It's, the master is in this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what everyone's been saying. Like, I think it's perfectly watchable. Like, it's a very competently made movie. I think it has fun moments. You would be better served if you have seen both classic and new Doctor Who. But I think if you have a passing interest in Doctor Who, take a look. It's good enough.
Yeah, you guys saying like the BBC making a movie about the BBC themselves. It reminded me of Straight Outta Compton, where those people are making a movie about themselves. So then they gloss over all the womanizing and all the drug use. So it's like, I can forgive the BBC because they're making something about themselves. And at the end of the day, I think this was definitely made for somebody like me because I just ate it up. And I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like watching a myth where I know what's going to happen. I've heard all the stories of how it's going to happen, but then having somebody craft it into a narrative through the eyes of William Hartnell and Verity Lambert, and then adding the soundtrack to those visuals, I think it just makes me think of comfort food. It's just something that, sure, we look at the past with rose-colored glasses, but isn't that how we always do that? And so why shouldn't the movie be like that? What I also like is that this movie is about second chances. It gives William Hartnell a boost in his career, and then Verity was on her way out of not having anything to do for a year in TV. So I think everybody deserves a second chance, and I think that's why watching this and analyzing it this week, I think that's why I like this movie a lot.
Would you say that the 50th special was more for the new Who, and this is more for the classic Who?
Oh,
fans?
yeah, because the new Who viewers that are watching it since 2005 won't know any of these references. Like, I don't even think they know who Sidney Newman and Verity Lambert are.
But for those who wanted the 50th to be more all-inclusive of Doctor Who, this would be a good one that they might like for more of the classic.
Yeah.
This may have been what they were looking for the 50th special type of thing.
And I mean, this was, I don't want to say test grounds, but something happened where David Bradley came back. It's not like he did this and was done with Doctor Who. So that shows something was there.
Right.
Anyway, so that wraps up an adventure in space and time. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Auburn.
You can find him at auburnbinkley.com.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
Visit our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
To listen to our show on your Amazon Echo device, enable the AnyPod podcast skill. Ask AnyPod to play the Who Knew podcast.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival, spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell,
Sidney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
Delia Derbyshire,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
your work continues to inspire and entertain.